Okay,
All
we
right.
are
Buddy.
recording. Go ahead, Jake.
Thanks. Yeah, my name's Jake Tomlinson. For those of you who may not know me, work for the center. I'm based out of my home office up in Tioga County, PA, in Wellsboro. So a lot of my responsibilities are around the PASS program, so our practice approval system, and what we're doing to set that up, and the training around that, and then this engineering assistance request program as well. So thanks for joining today. We're just going to have a really informal discussion about the Engineering Assistance Request Program and our ability now to kind of expand this program and offer some additional services through it. So I'd like to keep it informal in the sense that if you guys have any questions, feel free, like Kaylee said, to stop us and unmute yourselves or type in your questions either directly to her or so that everybody can see them. Basically, I just kind of want to give a vision for what this program is, where it was, where it's going, and get any questions from you all. So, got just a few prepared slides here to do that, and then we're going to walk through how we apply, how you actually submit your projects for consideration in this program, and then open the rest of the time up just to Q&A as well. So, with that, I will go ahead and get started. Again, we're talking about the Engineering Assistance Request Program. And so this actually officially launched in December of 2012 when we kicked this off. And our goal is really just to kind of help you folks move your projects forward and look for bottlenecks and try to help plug those bottlenecks and connect the dots to keep things going. So we have a couple of different ways that we've been working through that to date, and that is by using our own staff at CACAT and the staff at the State Conservation Commission, the regional staff, to help with these things and helping to understand what your project needs are and trying to do some designs and initial planning and things like that. Then we can also connect you out with our conservation partners that are doing this work when our capacity's, basically full or something like that, or we don't have time to help service your project. And another way we're working on this is to connect you with qualified private sector providers. So, many of you are working with local engineers in your region already. Some folks have had troubles finding enough people to do their to do their design work or whatever engineering needs you have. So we've been trying to connect dots there where we don't have internal capacity. And then also kind of at the launch of this, when it started in December 24, we had a small pot of funding that was through our agreement with HRG that was devoted to doing some I&E development and one showcase project every year. So basically what this equated to was about 3 plus or minus I&Es per year, maybe a small project design. And then a showcase project was essentially like a design build. So you would start with a project that had a solid plan, good cost estimates. HRG then helped to complete the design, all the permitting requirements went along with it, bidding requirements, helped to do the construction oversight, and helps to get the project through. And our first project with that with them is nearing completion. It's going to be going to construction this year. We've selected a second one, but as you can imagine, those are pretty competitive, small pots of funding because we're only able to do a handful of projects every year. So we rely heavily on our internal staff and then our conservation partners and connecting the dots with other technical service providers as well to kind of meet the needs so far. Again, why might you all be interested in this support? Basically, a lot of counties have new ACAP staff. So there's maybe not a full understanding of all of the components that go into getting these projects complete, from like planning to design to construction oversight to completion. So if you are new ACAP staff out there and you're looking for help, or maybe there's no ACAP staff in your county and you're in a county wearing multiple hats, that's another very common denominator out there. You might be 102, 105 technicians, watershed specialists, both. There's all kinds of different scenarios throughout the counties that kind of lead to a need for additional engineering support. Maybe you're waiting on past training certification opportunities. So you might have the skill set to do these things, but you don't have the certifications yet to do all of the work on your own from start to beginning. And that's that practice approval system trainings that we're starting to roll out now. So this is kind of not only a way to bridge that gap and help connect the dots for folks that are in those boats, but also kind of build support and capacity within those other programs as well. And I also mentioned maybe your county's having a hard time finding engineers to complete all the workload that you're giving them. So one of the goals here is to build a really solid list of firms that are out there doing this work that can help with these projects, and maybe then you can draw from other regions and work outside of your county that you've been using so far. And another example would be maybe you just don't have the funds to pay the engineering services. Engineering's pretty expensive, and if you're a minimum county, you only have so many funds to go around, and you might want to be diverting all of your dollars that you can to project funding versus the technical assistance funds and other funds being used to cover those engineering costs. So since we launched that program in December, we've been working to increase our own capacity at CACAT and SCC within our staff, identifying what our capacity is to start with and what training needs we have to kind of build that too. And we've been helping out with site planning, survey assistance when appropriate, conservation practice designs in some cases, helping to design small projects, water systems, things like that, and then helping to review and support review different projects of yours. So like maybe you have a conservation plan that you didn't fully understand all the pieces or didn't know if it went far enough to address all the resource concerns on a farm, for example. We can help and have been helping to review those type of questions. Or maybe you've gotten in a design from an engineering firm and you had some questions on whether or not those practices and that design meets NRCS standards and specifications, for example. So helping you through those type of things, increasing our own capacity internally to do all of that. So what we found is we needed to kind of compartmentalize the services that we're offering so that we can put uh, brackets around it, identify deliverables for what we were going to be offering, kind of help group requests as they're coming in, and then utilize our own internal staff where their capacities are at, basically. So right now I'll run through kind of our four main buckets that we're grouping all of these things into. First is the ACAP site visit. So really, this is kind of a project comes to us where maybe there is a basic plan in place. Maybe it doesn't really cover all of the practices that are being requested. So maybe somebody's reached out to us and they're asking for a grazing project, but they have an ENS plan for cropland. So it really doesn't cover the grazing practices. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done to kind of solidify what it is that the producer needs, what conservation needs are out there, what the county's ACAP services and program could cover and is interested in covering. So the ACAP site visit is really just that, like basically an initial site visit with the landowner and the county to understand what all these needs are. And the deliverables from this type of a visit would be basically a brief assessment of notes, photos from the site visit, maybe some proposed actions and BMPs, what plans need to be updated, what plans are existing, a list of those things, a field map with the locations of all the things that we talked about, and recommendations for moving forward. So it's kind of a cursory visit that will set you up well to get the planning in place to then kind of move forward in the process. So the second bucket that we have is what we're calling an ACAP project proposal. And really this is where those detailed proposals are put together. So you have good planning in place. Maybe it's not 100% there because often as you continue moving through this process, you identify maybe new practices that need to be included or changing the amount of practices that need to be in the plans, like extent of practices, things like that. So this is basically for those projects that have really solid planning in place and you're trying to get a contract written for ACAP. So now we got to put budgeting numbers to it so we can get these contracts prepared. So this is comparable to the NRCS inventory and evaluation report, if many of you are familiar with. We're calling it something different here, just an ACAP project proposal to try and eliminate some confusion because some projects may have NRCS INEs already, some projects don't. Some folks maybe that are new to the field don't really know what an NRCS I&E is and what it entails. So maybe they would be asking for an I&E when really they need the first ACAP site visit, things like that. So that's why we're kind of switching up some nomenclature here. But again, the deliverables for that project proposal are detailed narrative, site plans, any survey information that was used to calculate this stuff, the design regulations themselves that went into BMPs are being proposed, if any of the conservation plans need to be updated, and a cost estimate so that you can enter into a contract hoping to have a pretty close number at the end of the day so that we don't have any overages or needing to amend contracts to include more funding, things like that. The third bucket that we're grouping the services into are the basically just conservation practice designs, BMP designs. And this is for ACAP contracts that projects that have been contracted already. They have, the cost estimates in place, the plan documents are in line, everything's been updated, and now it's time to build this project. So within basically the confines of what we're setting up in the practice approval system, is how we'll operate with this and what our internal staff will be able to provide assistance with. So we're using that same system for our staff to help you folks at the conservation districts with designs, as our schedules allow. And the deliverable there is the complete design package. And you'll have essentially everything you need to then move toward bidding and construction for these projects. And we're working closely with you districts in this all of these cases. So the goal here is basically hands-on training for you. So although our staff are going to be helping you through the process, our intent with all of this is to kind of build your capacity locally too, and give you as much freedom through that as you wish, so there might be individual kind of tailored ways that we approach each project based on what your needs are, where your skill set is, where you are in your conservation career, and what technical capacities you've developed to date, things like that. So a lot of different ways we can approach that. And finally, the fourth bucket is essentially all of the I had mentioned earlier, some planning document review, help with project designs or contract bid document reviews, making recommendations on those. So a lot of times you'll get documents in and you don't necessarily know if they're doing what you need them to do or what your next step is to move from the design plan that you receive from an engineering firm and now you are responsible for bidding it. Maybe that's an example. So those are the type of questions and things that we can also help you with in this program, along with any kind of normal basic surveying needs, help with construction oversight, check out documentation, all of those type of things. So kind of a catch-all bucket, based on what your needs are for individual projects. Okay, so that brings us to our new funding. And what this is basically is, so CACAT, under the initial federal allocation, has been fully funded through the end of 2026. So now that we're getting new state allocations as well, the funding that would be for CACAT that's coming out of those state allocations is not needed for us to provide the center, the training, the staff, and all the stuff that goes into that funding being available for CACAT. So with that now being on the table, we actually proposed recently a amendment or an enhancement to our scope of work, the CACAT scope of work with the SEC for the ACAP funding that comes down. So within this fiscal year 24 state funding pool, which you guys already received your allocations for, that was the first state allocation that you received. We requested additional funding basically to help build up this engineering assistance request program with an enhancement. The idea is to utilize the program, as we've been developing it, to continue to identify and solicit our ACAP projects that need engineering support. And then we, in tandem with the State Conservation Commission regional staff, review all of the requests that come in and kind of start to parse them out into what bucket they need to go into, what kind of assistance is needed, whether or not we can assist those requests internally with our SCC and CACAT staff, or if it makes sense to go externally and start bidding out these projects. So this funding is going to be used for that external part where we're actually working with outside sources and paying them with this funding to complete your work. For each project that falls into that bucket, I'll be developing a request for proposal. And then that is going out for quotes essentially for all of this work. So it's not part of our existing agreement with HRG necessarily. This is in addition to an external from. And we're hoping to use your local engineers that you guys work with often and have had good success with to the extent that they have capacity to do so. And if we start hitting any bottlenecks where maybe they have too many projects going to help you, things like that, we can start expanding from there and looking for firms that work regionally, for example, to bring in others to try and make sure that there's no delay to these projects based on what we have to help fund anyhow. And then we at CACAT will enter into an agreement with these firms with for each project. So there's going to be a separate agreement for every individual project. And then we're going to help track and manage all the deliverables that are associated with that. Okay, so what is that? For the added services and what we're considering our contractual services under the Engineering Assistance Request Program, we are looking at the ACAP project plans. So again, that's equivalent to that NRCS inventory and evaluation. That's a standalone document that gets you to the contracting phase, basically, or at least to solid a solid understanding of what practices need to be designed and what practices are in the contract and what the project costs will be. The second thing is for actual project designs. So when you have those solid plans in place, we know the practice extents and we know all of the information that we need to have, and you have a signed ACAP contract with the landowner, we can then move towards a conservation practice design. So the key there is a signed contract. So with an ACAP project plan, we may not necessarily have a signed contract that's been approved by your board. Maybe you know there's a high likelihood that these things are going to be approved, but they don't necessarily have to have a contract in place because how will somebody sign a contract not really knowing what they're getting into, right? So with that one, it's not as critical. But with a practice design package, which is much more costly, a lot more effort goes into these, we want to make sure that they are projects that you are going to fund and that are going to be moving forward. So the best way we could do that is to make sure there's a application in place, a contract in place. There are some counties that operate differently than others, and they wait to contract, for example, till the very end. So on a case by case basis, we can look at this requirement as well. I just wanted to let you guys know that up front. Another item that we are working to provide under these contractual services are then the bid and contract document preparation. So this could be lumped right into the conservation practice designs, or it can be standalone. So we have our design, then we have our bid document preparation that'll go out for our contractors. And the fourth thing is the construction oversight and checkout documentation. And again, this can all be bid together with the project design at one time, or we can separate them. Maybe you already have designs in place. You all want to bid it yourselves, but you need help with construction oversight. So any parts of these can be separated, standalone or bid together. So just a little bit about our budget for this. Again, these are professional services in this enhancement that we received that are going straight out as project funding. We have $750,000 to do these project proposals, designs, checkout documentation, all the things I just spoke about. And that funding that came to us is 100% going towards projects. The university hasn't had to use anything out of that because we are fully funded through 2026. So one thing to rest assured is that these dollars are being used straight towards your projects. Our estimated cost per project type that we put together for the budget was around $5,000 for a project proposal, 25,000 for design, $25,000 for checkout. So you can see there like roughly what maybe would be a number of projects that we would do. Our hope is that it's more than what's listed here and that we can decrease project costs because not every project is super complicated. That would be a pretty complicated project to be hitting that $25,000, $50,000 mark. So just a quick snapshot on the budget that we're working with. Again, these funds are good through the end of 2026, and we're going to be expending them on a rolling basis. So as you request for your projects, we're looking at them, putting them in one of the buckets. Is it a project that we're going to be able to handle internally and help you with internally? Great. Then it doesn't come out of the 750. Is it a project that we don't have the capacity for and is a good fit for using these funds? Then we'll start the process right then to write the RFP and start getting quotes and keep your project moving. The intent there is to make sure that there's no delays. You know, if you have a project that comes in with needs now, we can service them now. We don't have to wait for an application period and then ranking applications, things like that. Um, Of course, all of this would not be possible without the funding that we get from ACAP and from the State Conservation Commission. So we wanted to throw a funding acknowledgement slide in here because we can't thank them enough for the support, and hopefully this program will support you and your programs. Oh, okay. And what I'd like to do before we go here, next I'm going to walk right through the application with you all, but I wanted to pause there for questions right now before we go through that application. No questions.
I don't have any in the chat. And now, okay, one just popped up. What does the needed ACAP contract need to include?
I'm sorry, what was that?
So what does the ACAP contract need to include when that's a requirement for
That
the
need to
assistance?
include. Um, I would say so in reference to moving from getting these funds for design. So the contract essentially would just need to include the practices that you're asking for design assistance with. So for example, if you were asking for design assistance with a roofed heavy use area, and in your contract you had a water system for grazing, that wouldn't work. Any others? Okay, well, we'll move on. So,
If you
how do
think of
you
one, just
right.
put it in the chat and we can come back to it.
Yep, yeah, we're gonna have time at the end of this too. I just wanted to pause for a minute before we went into the how. So, what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna walk you right through the survey. The QR code here takes you to a survey, which is what we're using for you to kind of communicate your project needs with us. Um, Go ahead and bookmark this. I think Kaylee's going to put a link in the chat as well. Please don't just click on it now and then go all the way through because we'll get an email for every single time you do that. But I'm going to click on it and then show you what it is we're looking at. I'm going to have to stop sharing and share this screen. Let me know when you see that, Kaylee.
You're good.
All right. So, well, it went to the end. Sorry. I was looking at this earlier and didn't realize it would pick right up where I stopped. Okay, so when you follow that link or QR code, you're going to come to a landing page that tells you you are on the engineering assistance request submittal page. And you click the arrow button, you're going to select the county that you're in. With the drop down, you're going to name the staff member that's requesting the assistance. You're going to provide your email so we can get back in touch with you. And you're going to provide the address and coordinates for the project location. And this could be different than the landowner's address, obviously. We're interested in looking for the project location here. Um, this way, we could zoom into aerials and start to get a picture of what's going on there. Then you're going to start making some decisions on whether or not the project is under contract or preliminarily approved by the district board. So yes, it's under contract. No, it's not under contract yet, but there's a high likelihood of approval. This is, a lot of counties operate in this manner where they're continuing to build all the documentation that's necessary to then have a really solid application. So that's why this one's here. And then no, maybe it's a project that just came to you. You're looking for initial planning support with things like that. That would be your no. So that's most likely the result of assistance that you get if you click no is going to be one of the CACAT or SCC staff coming out to do like a site visit or something like that. I'm going to go ahead and click that. We'd like to know kind of what funding allocation is supporting your project to help inform our decisions if we're getting in too many requests to fund everything. So the initial federal allocation is obviously going to be our highest priority. So we want to make sure that there are no bottlenecks for that funding. It can be constructed, built, done, expended by the end of 2026 as necessary. So if and your project might include funds from both, right? So you can select multiple boxes here because maybe you're using a little bit of the initial federal allocation to use up the rest of that money, and you have some of the last year's allocation that you're using towards these projects. So you can select any or all of these boxes to kind of tell us what funding pool you're using. And then you're going to select what tasks. Again, you can select multiple tasks here. And these have been broken up based on those 4 buckets. Your ACAP site visit, project proposal, conservation practice design, construction oversight, checkout. And then also maybe some planning document review, project design and review recommendations, contracting document review recommendations, or other. So again, give us as much information. And if you're looking for multiple things here, you can select multiple boxes. So maybe you want that site visit and a project proposal because it's initial federal allocation and you got to get things moving really fast on this project, for example. So make sure you let us know everything you need. Next, you're going to list the conservation practices that are included in the request to the extent that you know, obviously. And if you don't know anything, maybe just at least what land use you're working in. So whether or not you're working in the farmstead, the pasture, cropland, or stream corridor, that'll be helpful for us to understand and start divvying up workload. And then what is the desired deadline for your assistance? So when do you guys, depending on what the needs are, if it's a design so you can go to construction and your goal is to construct it early next year, I need this design by such and such a date, those type of considerations. This section is for you to upload any of the planning documents that you have. So basically any information you have that can help us. So the Ag E&S plan, the NRCS conservation plan, manure management plans, whatever it might be, an NRCS I&E. Maybe you have a ACAP project proposal that one of our staff provided. Drop these files here for upload so that we have them handy and can start divvying up workload. And there's 3 different spots here for you to drop files. If you need more, you can reach out to us directly as well. And then the last box is whether or not there's anything else that would be helpful for us to know when reviewing the requests. So a lot of times there's specific project considerations that need to be thought of. This is where you would share that information with us so that we know, have a heads up and can plan accordingly. When you do that, the survey will be submitted and I will get an email directly. Kaylee and myself will get an email directly and we'll begin the process of working with the State Conservation Commission to identify, what we're going to do with that project request. Again, is it something that we can service internally with our staff? Is it something that we need to think about for this external funding? Our goal, by and large, is to get back to your request within a couple of weeks so that we can either set up a call with you to get more information or we can start moving on whatever it is that we need to do with your request. That said, if you submit one today, it might be a little longer than 2 weeks because I'll be leaving on vacation next week. But our goal again is to do that as quickly as possible. The intent here is to relieve bottlenecks for the districts so that they can keep their funding moving forward. So we're definitely not going to be holding that up in any way. And that is it. That's the whole survey. Essentially timelines, what it is we're trying to achieve. So that's all the prepared content that I had for you all today. And now I just will open it up to some questions and things like that.
Yeah, Jake, thanks. So we did have another question pop up while you're going through the form.
Mhm.
It's if we have multiple projects, maybe
Mhm.
4 potential projects for the ACAP project proposal stage, should we apply for them all or somehow try to decide which one to pick? Any suggestions for equal access?
That's a good question. Multiple projects, when you do decide to submit, please submit one request for each project. I forgot to mention that. It was on that last slide with the QR code, but so there's that. And then now with many projects being, it's before the ACAP project proposal phase, and it's just initial site visit discussions and things like that. And if you have many of them and you don't fully know which ones you're interested in funding yet, I think that that would probably be best handled via email. You can contact me directly and include your SCC rep as well in that email and just ask us to set up a call with you. And then we can work directly with you to figure out what projects should come through and be requests in this program.
Okay, another question, Jake, is will there someday be a way for the conservation districts to write their own IMEs or what we're calling the ACAP project proposals?
Absolutely. Pass the practice approval system is the mechanism for that. So you're going to be, if you decide to go through the practice approval system for the various certification packages, that will give you the tools that you need to do everything from the planning considerations, understanding what plans need to be updated based on the conservation practices you're proposing, the design of those practices, and the construction and installation of those practices. So you still may get into scenarios where, okay, this project's a little bit outside of my wheelhouse. I'm not fully comfortable and I want additional support. That would be an example, even if you had passive certification for conservation, for certification packages that covered the work you were doing, you still might want to submit an application to this program for assistance. That's why we're here. That's one of the reasons to have this. You don't need to know everything about everything for sure. But pass understanding that, moving through that phase and process gives you like that's our training path, basically. If you're an employee that already has that skill set, maybe you've been around for a long time, you've worked on a lot of different projects, maybe you have NRCS job approval authority, things like that. You certainly can develop your own project proposals and help to inform the conservation plans that need to be updated based on those and submit your own work. Let's say you don't want to do the design, but you've done the ACAP project proposal. You could submit your own work along with that request for design, and we can evaluate it, make sure everything makes sense, and move straight to the design phase.
Okay, another question is, so the listed costs of project proposal, shovel-ready design, and checkout services, are these the costs of services beyond the capacity of the CACAT staff, or would prices vary if an RFP needed to be sent out?
So those are estimated costs if we're contracting that work. Those costs don't include assistance that come from CACAT and SCC staff. That help comes from our agreements. That's already, it doesn't come out of this additional funding pool that we have. So those costs are way less when our staff are doing it. That said, they're estimated costs. So we're hoping that, I mean, some projects could be more, some projects could be less. We just had to put some brackets around it so that we could show, okay, roughly how many projects can we do with this funding that the SEC has awarded toward the enhancement of this program. Does that answer the question?
They said yes.
Okay.
So, any Other questions? Someone wants to unmute and ask a question, that's fine as well. Right. Well, if
It's,
there are no more questions, go ahead, Jake.
I was just going to add that this is going to be recorded, and there will be a link within the there's a website, obviously, that there will be a link there for this recording if you need to touch base and refresh on anything. We're always available. You can reach out to me directly. I'll put my email in the chat.
Already did.
Sweet. So that's done. Reach out to us directly. Again, our goal here is to just help keep things moving along. So whatever issues you come up with, we may not know the answer, but we're going to do our darndest to try and connect you with the answer. And we're excited to get this thing launched. So if you have some good projects, please get them in early. Like I said, I'll be gone for 2 weeks, so it may be a little bit before we get back to you, but we are working on it. We are starting our RFP templates that we're going to be using for this program, and we're also building templates for you all to use too. So even if you're just looking for documents and ideas and things like that, feel free to reach out to us. That's it.
Some thanks. And yeah, if you, like Jake said, all the links are in the chat. If you just scroll up a little bit, I gave you the link to the webpage, which has some more details and directly to the application as well. And that has been sent out to the ACAP listserv as well. So you should have that back in your files somewhere too. And so I'm going to stop the recording